Hello, everybody. I'm Simon Preston, and welcome back to Reggae Boyz Commentary. This is the platform where we'll come together to discuss everything in relation to Jamaican football. This is your hub for everything Jamaican football related. See? Football. Football. All right. So I've been doing a lot of talking videos lately, right? I know usually you used to have quick 10, 15, 20, half an hour video where I summarize points and elements that have to be stressed. But in this video, I'm going to continue on the vein that you would have seen on Thursday and also on Friday to some extent as well. And that's in relation to what we're going to talk about. And this is the reason why for this video, we have the title, Following the Blueprint of Success. And I'm going to use 3 examples to help us with this point, okay? 3 points, 3 examples. Now, before I go into the 3 examples, I want to let everybody know that it is true that one size doesn't fit all. But what I will say is this. I think there are always points that we can take from success, successful people, successful teams that we can emulate as well. So you're not taking every single thing, every single detail from a success somebody had and imply it in your life. We all have different paths. We all have different journeys. We all have different backgrounds. So it is unfair to have an expectation that you're going to follow in the same path like others. However, there are points and there are elements that you can emulate. You can pick from here and pick from here and pick from here to mold you as a character to make improvements. And all of this is stemmed towards the growth and development of Jamaica as well, and the progress and the vision that we all have of getting to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So I've chosen 3 examples of success. And with those 3 examples, I'm going to tell you exactly, from a Jamaican standpoint, the areas that we can take as well to ensure that these things fall into place quite smoothly. Is everybody ready? Are you guys ready? Because at this point in time, we're going to go straight to it. All right? Lights on. Okay. We're going to go back to 1995. In fact, a few years before that, Nelson Mandela was released from prison. So we're going to start with example 1, South Africa. Example 2, France. Example 3, the West Indies, so that you guys can follow along. So the first example, South Africa. The second example, France. And the third example, the West Indies. You guys ready? Okay, let's go. So with South Africa, Nelson Mandela was released from prison. In a matter of years, he became the Prime Minister, President of South Africa. South Africa was going through an extremely difficult period of time, extremely difficult, economy-wise, and also a rift between the people of the country. It's no secret in relation to how one race might treat the other and vice versa. So what was South Africa's pride, especially for the Afrikaans, the whites of South Africa, was rugby. The nickname of the team, the Springboks, just like the nickname of our national football team, the Reggae Boyz. Similarly, with South Africa, the nickname is the Springboks. This was the pride of whites in South Africa. The blacks in South Africa, you could say, more lean towards football. Football, Bafana Bafana. And if you follow the movie Invictus, it gives a very keen storyline in relation to the treatment of it. There was even a vote that, especially blacks in South Africa, they associate Springboks with apartheid. Now, the point I'm trying to make with all of this is this. Nelson Mandela, what did he do? South Africa was hosting the 1995 Rugby World Cup in their own backyard. He wanted to unite the nation. How did he do that? He attended training sessions of the Springboks. He knew their names. So every single player that he approached, he knew them by their name. Every single one of them, by name and face, shook their hand and wished them well. I repeat, every single player Nelson Mandela knew by their face and their names to a T. The members of the coaching staff as well know them to a T. This surprised the South African rugby team because they felt like they got a support that they never had before from the leaders of the land. The most powerful leader, arguably, within the African continent at that time. Nelson Mandela united the country. Every single week, also having PR opportunities for the Springboks in communities that were predominantly for Black South Africans, teaching them the rules of rugby as well, and getting Black people in South Africa to learn more about the game, the rudiments, the rules, until that day came in the final against New Zealand, and South Africa won the World Cup. Francois Pienaar was a captain, and his post-match interview said everything. It felt like 20 million South Africans were behind the country. The entire nation. And that all stems from Nelson Mandela and what he did. He looked at sports as a vehicle. He looked at rugby as the way to unite the country. And it did. It did. More diverse races took up the sport of rugby. This brought the country into an egalitarian state. Nelson Mandela, by simply starting and knowing the names of all the players, attending the training sessions, shaking their hands, wishing them well before each and every game, turned South Africa not only in a force in rugby, but also united a nation. And guess what? World Cup champions, 2019 winners, and also 2023 as well, when you put things into perspective as well. Back to back. I'm going to relate an example of what Jimmy Murphy said. In 1958, Manchester United players had the Air Munich disaster. As we all know, our Jamaican Lindy de la Pena could have been part of that team. But his girlfriend at the time had a bad feeling about it. Because as we know, the transfer window was going to end in February. On February 6th, 1958, we saw what happened. After that, the owners of Manchester United said that they wanted to shut down the football club. But do you know what Jimmy Murphy said? Jimmy Murphy said, how we are in the future is based on how we behave today. And Jimmy Murphy said, that's fine. We will use the academy players and push them into the first team. And a decade later, Manchester United became champions of Europe. The second English club to ever do that. Well, the first English club and the second British club after Celtic. Yeah, simply put. So what is the example from South Africa that we can take from a Jamaican standpoint? Moral support. And I'm not talking from spectators, I'm talking widely. Corporate Jamaica, the government of Jamaica, which you could say has started. Minister Grange has come, greet the players, getting to know the faces, names, characters on the pitch in terms of their style of play. We continue along those lines, then certainly we can be proud about what lies ahead. Let's go to the second point, and we're going to look at France. Now, as we know, Jamaica qualified for France in 1998. But what happened in France during that time? Because France was not in a stable position. We saw France in the World Cup in the 80s, but France all of a sudden missed a couple of World Cups. You know, we didn't see France at the 94 World Cup, right? No, we didn't. Claire Fontaine was brought, the National Academy, and the best young talents all across France came. And this was a place of development, a place of growth, a place of constant action together. So what happened? Again, unity. What was France like at the time? Well, you had, of course, thoroughbred French. You had persons that also emigrated to France post-World War II. Specifically, Northern Africa, Algerians, Tunisians, Moroccans, from the African continent immigrated to France. The Portuguese, Spanish also immigrated to France as well. Zinedine Zidane, Algeria, Robert Pires, Portuguese, Spanish background, etc., etc., etc. From the Caribbean, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Lilian Thuram, born and raised in Guadeloupe. Yep. So France became a team that was mixed with thoroughbred French, persons with an Arabic background, and those with a Caribbean background. That's what France turned into. Zinedine Zidane, Thuram, Pires, Barthez, Petit, Didier Deschamps. That's exactly what France turned into. And France 98 was a success, a massive success. You could say perhaps the only blemish at the World Cup, but for them was a red card in the group stages to Monsieur Thierry Henry. But everything fell into place, didn't it? Yes, it did. What's the point and example here? Regardless of your backgrounds, all were appreciated. Did the French say that Zidane was not 100% French? Perhaps in the early days. Perhaps they were saying, well, he's the son of immigrant parents from Algeria. Of course, you would have had those conversations. And there was even the foreign minister at the time saying that some of the players don't know the French anthem and not singing with their heart. But all of that was squashed and put to bed. So regardless of our national players, whether they were born in the United States, like Tavon Gray, whether they were born in the UK, like many, many others, they're Jamaicans just like you and I. Jamaicans just like you and I. I made this example yesterday. Well, technically Thursday. And I'm going to make the example again. Tiffany Cameron and I were born in the 90s, right? We knew the financial challenges that took place in Jamaica in the 80s. Many people left Jamaica, right? My parents decided to stay. My parents decided to stay in Jamaica and graft and graft and graft and graft and graft. And credit to them, because I can only imagine that it could not have been easy. Because my father had children before he met my mother, and my mother also had a son as well before I came into the picture. So I can imagine it wasn't easy, and both my father's mom was alive at the time and my mother's mother was alive at the time as well. So I can imagine it wasn't easy. But we had some families that decided to take the risk, the leap of faith to go overseas, like Tiffany's mom and dad. And in the early 90s, little Tiffany was born in Toronto. And in the early 90s, Simon was born in St. Andrew. Does that make Tiffany less of a Jamaican than I am? No. No, not at all. Tiffany's family looked out for the future. And so did my parents as well. But of course, I mentioned the point at the beginning, different paths in life, different circumstances. Who knows? I could have been part of that subset of persons that were born elsewhere. But my parents and my mother decided that this would have been the land of my birth. Let's treat everybody the way that we want to be treated. Okay? Adrian Mariappa, just as much as of a Jamaican as I am. Bobby Reed, just as much as a Jamaican as I am, or even more. Tamari Gray, and the list can go on and on and on and on and on and on. Bobby Reed sits down at 3 o'clock in the morning and watches games in the Jamaica Premier League, watches games in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Recently, before the game against Haiti, he's talking about Cavalier could play Robin Hood in the final. And guess what? It's going to be Cavalier against Robin Hood in the final of the CONCACAF Caribbean Cup. And he feels that it would be Harbour View third and Cavalier win it. So don't think for a moment that people that they don't know what's happening in Jamaica. They follow what is happening. They know what is happening in the local league. They're watching around. They know about the new money on the island. They're aware. They are aware. So talk about South Africa and the moral support, and France, the treatment. Those are the two blueprints. And finally, the West Indies. Do any of you guys know who is the most successful sports team in the history of sports? Let me phrase it another way. Which sports team has the longest unbeaten run? No, it's not Spain's football team, and it's not Argentina, but it's the West Indies cricket team. West Indies cricket team has the longest unbeaten run of any sports team. February 1980 to February 1995, the West Indies went 15 years unbeaten and did not lose a single test series. 15 years. Tell me another sports team that went 15 years without losing in a series. 15 years. What is the blueprint that the Reggae Boyz can take from this? Well, there are qualities that are already being developed within the team. The unity, the chemistry, the cohesion are already there. And we know what it was like during those 80s as well. The fast bowlers, Michael Holding, Andy Roberts, Curtly Ambrose, Joel Garner. Quite a robust bunch. And you can't forget about the likes of Gordon Greenidge, Desi Haynes, Jeffrey Dujon. Quite a pivotal time. And when you talk to people today, they'll tell you, don't forget the name Patrick Patterson, because he's one of the quickest in the world. And after watching him and many of his matches, you'd have to say, yeah, if you had to say, it's Patrick Patterson. So we spoke about South Africa, we spoke about France, and we spoke about the West Indies. Following the blueprint of success. There's always something that we can take from successful teams, athletes. And we're starting to do that, which is the great news. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you guys haven't already, hit the like button. And after you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to Reggae Boyz Commentary. Do you want me to do more extemporaneous deliveries like this? Let's hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Okay, guys? Thank you.